Alright, what is going on, people? It's Hound the Forge here. Today I'm going to be talking about the philosophy of fairness in sport. And alright, if you. People? Oh shit. It's Hound the Forge here. Mute that shit. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about the philosophy of sports. And why I'm talking about this is, if you don't know, I did a debate with Miss Vivian Wolf on Destiny's channel. He moderated it. It was a pretty good debate, but one thing that I didn't expect to happen was that she completely conceded that there is, or could possibly be, a trans woman advantage in certain power sports. Now, basically, all of my research hinged upon there being contention on that point. So when she kind of caved, I was like, oh, wow, okay, interesting. And then that got me thinking deeper into the philosophy of sport, which I guess I probably should have um, realized that I actually had a preconception of sport, which I just generalized to everyone, her and him especially, before we even started the debate. So I went back, looked at the kind of the philosophy of sports literature, and I have a slightly varied opinion, but well, I'll just go over it. So um, let's start off here. So when we're talking about sports and like who can compete in sports and like why they can compete, the empirical questions only inform our axiomatic bases for why we do sports. What are the purpose of sports? A lot of people just kind of a priori assume that sports are about competition, skill apprehension, and seeing who is the best of the best. Because this is kind of like what we learn about in school about how sports works. You know, if you're the best, you win, and everyone's supposed to have a fair starting point and stuff like that. But what we don't kind of consider is the actual level of fairness that goes on beneath the surface in human body and with people in general. So how do we choose a justified philosophy of sport? So the current Western conception is that hard work is rewarded. You know, you heavily value work ethic. Anything that kind of subverts this is immoral. So drugs, anything that sets a unlevel playing field isn't okay and should be banned in pretty much all sports. Yeah. So I'm going to present the philosophy that I now have, and then I'll try to explain more about it. But basically, I think that trans women can compete in women's sports, in all women's sports. And there are only some sports where they actually have a disadvantage that is that I would claim could be on the level of intolerable unfairness, because we deal with tolerable unfairness all the time in sports. Athletes have different genetic makeups. They train the same hardness. It doesn't mean they're going to have the same outcome. So there is a level which you want to find, which is this intolerable unfairness? So I believe that the intolerable unfairness question hinges on the empirical outcomes of studies that need to happen in the future in regards to testosterone levels and how they influence specific sports in specific contexts. So the main feature of this is that we have to look at the empirical investigation into muscle memory. And So basically, when you have testosterone in your body, the increase in testosterone allows for greater and quicker creation of muscle nuclei, and these are the things, the central things which increase your muscle size and muscle power, your contractile velocity in your muscles. So if you have more of that in your body, it's going to create more new muscle nuclei. When you remove it, what was previously thought was that the muscle nuclei actually disappear, they degrade. What's actually found is that they still harbor, or they're still dormant inside the muscle tissue, so that when you train again, the muscle nuclei reforms and regrows. So we've seen this happen in lab studies with mice. We haven't seen an explicit study done on humans, which needs to happen, and if which we find that there is an extreme amount of muscle nuclei that are saved indefinitely throughout the whole entire life. This will kind of put this question into a different perspective. And it will also challenge the perspective of individuals who use drugs and are caught using drugs. Because if it's true that you have elevated testosterone, it gives you more muscle nuclei, and then you train on it, then you get caught. The ban is only 2 years for the official Olympic Committee, but the advantage that you could have conveyed on yourself actually would last you a lifetime, or it could possibly last you a lifetime. So the implications are for both of those. But I still do believe in the meritocratic way of organizing sports, that regardless of how we form the philosophy, having it be a general meritocracy is extremely important. So that means that we don't want to have quotas, or in the sense that sacrificing competition for more or less equality, because that's really the main the main battle here in sports is competition versus inclusion and equality, or I guess just inclusion. The more competition you have, the truth is, the less inclusion you have. And so this was something that really kind of changed my mind on it, was when we look at the division in sports between male and female, why do we have that division? Why is that division a thing? Well, if you look at it from a extreme competition perspective, why wouldn't we just have one group with all the elite athletes in that one group, right? Why wouldn't we just have it be a fight between just the best people in general in the world? Now, you can probably answer that question yourself. It's because that would leave out a vast majority of people of a certain kind of group, namely women, females in general. There would actually be a lot of crossover in a ton of sports, but in general, there probably wouldn't be many women breaking the top 10 in virtually every sport. So that's creating the men's and women's categories is actually for having just one single category is something that we found was an intolerable unfairness. So we wanted to make 2 categories for men and women, because we wanted to include women in sports and their ability to achieve things in sport. So we did this for inclusion purposes, not because people like to say, okay, well, we split up men and women because of course we did. Like, what else would we do? Well, we could have not done that. We would have gotten a different outcome, and a different outcome of unfairness. So that's kind of the basis of the philosophy towards why we don't want to throw trans people under the bus. because we already have a category based on inclusion. Um, we already set up sports in a way that it can include as many people as possible. Yeah. So, um, given what I've said, that there are some sports where trans women will uh, excel to a level that could be um, intolerable unfairness. We just have to think how intolerable is that, and how can we kind of um, reify the problem. So there have been a lot of suggestions, but one that I actually didn't think about, which I think is really apt and important, is handicaps. So in amateur golf, there are handicaps on people where you start with a basically a lower stroke total compared to others, so that it's not as difficult. Like you don't have as many restrictions on the amount of times that you hit the ball to get it in the hole, which will improve your score. Um, in the Paralympics, they have sports organized by the level of disability of the individual. And so in like basketball, you can only have actual certain number on the court, and the number of an individual is dictated by the level of disability they have. So the more able-bodied the person is, the more numbers they contribute to the team. So I could see something like this happening with trans individuals in sport. There could be some sort of handicap placed on, like, say, the power sports. There's a handicap placed on them that their totals are deducted by a certain either set amount or percentage amount, depending on their body weight category, which would make it so they have to lift more weight to win. But this is balanced by the fact that they get to compete in the sport, and that we recognize that they have a form of intolerable unfairness, but we still want them to compete and to enjoy the same um, um, rights as other individuals. So this is pretty much all I had. It's just a quick stream. I just want to put my thoughts out on that because I have kind of researched it and thought about, the different features of sport, and how we should even see sport. And I now realize that the purely competition-based approach isn't the most conducive to the actual kind of fairness that we want in competition, the kind of things that we actually want to see. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Thanks for listening, sorry, and